Okay, and good evening.
Good evening. Welcome back.
Welcome back. This is our latest episode here, Lehigh Valley Caffeinated, the redefinition of our mission. Sorry we haven't been on in so long.
Yes.
If you'll notice, our channel's been kind of sort of filling up with videos that we've been taking from Allentown City Council meetings for about 4 months now. We've been doing that.
Since January. Well, since July.
Well, since last summer, basically.
Yep.
These videos that we took before are our record of what was said and done at these various Allentown City Council meetings. For example, Allentown City Council has had a long-standing problem with parking, and let me explain how that works. Several months ago, the City Council of Allentown was persuaded to raise the parking rates to $2 an hour downtown by Tony Iannelli, who is in charge of the Greater Lehigh Valley Economic Development Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
He did this falsely by saying that he had surveyed various businesses in the Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce and was told that it would be permissible for them to raise the parking rates. Upon cross-examination during the original meeting...
It wasn't even cross-examination. People were just asking. You said there's this survey that you did of all the businesses. Can we get it? Well, no, you can't get it. Well, can we at least know what businesses you surveyed?
Mm-hmm.
You said there's a PowerPoint presentation, a report. Can you at least tell us that? Well, it actually wasn't a PowerPoint. We actually didn't do a survey. I lied about that. We actually just surveyed one business, and
it was that low-keyed in the original presentation.
Oh yeah, it's just like, oh well, I just lied about it,
Pretty much. And what's been happening since, over the past several months, we've had 5 businesses close out here in downtown Allentown. Famous among them, Shula's Steakhouse.
Shula's Steakhouse. What was the most recent one? Tony Luke's, Pop Mart.
I can't remember the others offhand.
There were two others, yeah. It's been bad.
But the point is, between the lack of steady events at the new PP&L Event Center, maybe they're hosting something once a week.
Right? Exactly.
People can't survive on that kind of a crowd. They need more consistency.
Well, there's a problem. Can I cut you off?
Go right ahead.
Only because they have a problem. They have a beautiful facility. It was built by a top-notch contractor from Minnesota. I forget the name. Beautiful facility. It's supposed to be the most beautiful 800 seat arena.
Like 5,000, I think.
No. 8,000. 8,000.
Okay.
Seat auditorium in the country.
Mm-hmm.
The other 8,000 seat auditorium in the country, of course, cost $1 million. This costs $2.5 million. So, right there's some suspicion there could be money laundering. But it cost over twice as much. But the problem is, there's two problems. Number one, it's hard to book acts because the new rule is, if you want to if you want to hire an act, it can't be appearing in either New York or Philadelphia within 2 months of the time you want to schedule them. So, number one, it used to be that they're in the neighborhood, they're in Philadelphia, they'll drive 60 miles and come up. You can't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one problem. Number two, it's only an 8,000 seat auditorium. They've been selling seats for $2 and $3 a pop. If you multiply 8,000 times 2, it's 16,000. 3 times 3.
I thought they were charging more for.
They've been subsidizing them because nobody's showing up.
Oh,
listen.
Well, please continue.
So $24,000 is the most. These acts, because they're not in Philadelphia and they're not driving 60 miles, they're not in New York and they're driving 120 miles, they're not in the neighborhood, they have to pay full fee for that. They have to pay anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 to get a good act. So you see, with an $8,000 auditorium that cost over twice as much as it should have cost, and there may have been money laundering by J.B. Riley or whoever, they can't afford it. It's a losing proposition every time they have an act in.
Mm-hmm.
They can't afford to do losing propositions. So you have this problem. You're booking acts, and every time you book an act, it's good for businesses around there, but the promoter is losing a fortune. J.B. Riley is subsidizing the loss.
And the businesses all around are losing money both from hosting these infrequent events and the parking rate here in Allentown as well.
Well, let's talk about that. Should we talk about that?
Well, we can talk about that for a few more minutes. Like I said, it costs $2 an hour to park now. They've extended the enforcement of the parking rates till 10 p.m.
10 p.m., folks.
When most people are in bed.
10 p.m. from what, like 8 in the morning till 10 p.m.?
Mm-hmm.
It's $2 an hour. Can you imagine? I don't think there's any other city in the country that goes till 10 p.m.
With the exception of New York and Philly and other big city markets like that.
Yeah.
But for Allentown, it doesn't work. We're trying to. They want to try to get people in Allentown, and these two problems are basically forcing people out of Allentown. They say, "Oh, we don't want to park there. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go to the mall. The mall offers free parking."
Guess what? Let's go to Bethlehem. Let's go to Easton. That happens all the time. People love going to Bethlehem Easton. The parking is a lot cheaper, and they have a lot of free parking, and they have activities. You don't have to have an arena to have activities. They have activities in the outdoors. They close off a couple streets, or they have it in where we used to go. The what is it? The Casa. What was that coffee shop? There were 2 coffee shops in Easton we used to go to.
You're right. I can't remember. The coffee and juice bar was one.
Coffee and juice bar.
And the one at Center Square. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. No, it wasn't Casa. It was something else.
Yeah, Terra
Cafe.
Terra Cafe.
Now there was good coffee, and I hope they're still open yet. We should stop
they're
by
still
there
open.
sometime.
And they had things like the Heritage Day. They had the Garlic Festival.
Mm-hmm.
They had great
Bacon Fest.
Fest.
Everybody loves bacon. Well,
you don't have to go in an arena. You don't have to pay any money. People set up tents, like they buy tents for like $400 or $500, and that money all goes into the fund to have more events. The people who pass, and they have them all down Northampton Street and 3rd Street. The people that come to the events don't have to pay a penny. They just buy what they want. They look at, they see what's available. They have a good time. They're talking and laughing. In Allentown, they have it at the arena, and you have to pay $2. And you don't get, if you get an act, an act once a week or something, you're lucky. Stupid.
Well, this is something that we're going to be working on in the near future, we hope.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said before in the beginning of the show, we've been taping the various Allentown City Council meetings, and we will continue to do so, so that we have an independent video source in case something happens to the Vistacom feed that Allentown City paid thousands of dollars for to get set up. Now, there was a problem in the beginning where if you waited a few weeks and you tried to view a video from a few weeks ago, they would ask you for a username and password.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're not going to do that with our feed. Our feed will always be available on youtube.com as I post them to the various Facebook groups that we belong to.
You just go to youtube.com
and look up just look up Lehigh Valley Caffeinated, and we're there.
That's it. Or you can go. Can you still go to the URL, or is that?
You can still go to the Ustream, but Ustream has a problem that personally I don't like. That involves them deleting videos older than 30 days. So as it gets up to that, every now and then I will back it up. And even tonight, this show here will be found on YouTube.
There you go.
So now I'm at the point we're just throwing it on YouTube. We're archiving it there. YouTube will let us upload as much as we want.
That's right.
All right, and so we'll always be found there. And maybe one day we'll do a live show on YouTube. That would be nice.
Hey, that'd be great. Now, the other thing is we're videotaping other things also. You're videotaping other things also.
Mm-hmm.
The ANISDA meetings.
Right. I've been videotaping the ANISDA meeting. I got to get out of the word videotaping.
Yeah.
Nobody uses videotape anymore.
No, exactly.
Now it's just plain old video.
Yeah.
Or a video podcast or a video smodcast. No, that's Kevin. That's Kevin Smith. But you get my point. We don't do tape anymore.
We do live.
Even DVDs are going out of style because and now everything is downloadable.
Let me ask you something. I'm not being out of sight, but I'm asking because I really don't know. Whenever we go on Lehigh Valley Caffeinated, I get an email. Mm-hmm. Is there any way viewers can get an email saying we are now on the air with the Lehigh County Authority or the NISDA or the City Council?
I'm not aware of
Okay.
a way, but I
Okay.
will investigate that.
Okay, I'm just
And
curious.
if that's the case, I will post that on one of our Facebook groups.
Because I get an
For
email.
example, let's build a better Allentown. Please disregard the beep.
Okay.
The battery is not going to blow up. All right. That's just my UPS or uninterruptible power supply
Okay.
giving out its certain signal as saying, "Hey, change the battery." I haven't done it yet. Those things are like $45 a pop.
Wow. Yeah.
But
yeah.
we'll do that sometime in
I
the near
remember
future.
we did that one time, didn't we? Didn't we?
Not
replace-
that, no.
Okay. All right.
Not that, but I will do it at some
Okay.
point. And in about 20 seconds, it will calm down and get back to normal.
We have crickets in the room.
Crickets, there you go. Crickets on Harleys.
Sounds like a Facebook
But
meme.
yeah, we'll work on that for the near future.
Okay.
Now, we've been involved, we've been doing one type of show or another for what, about 3 years now?
Since 2012.
Since 2012.
Yep.
And the first thing we started up on as part of the original Lehigh Valley Coffee Party.
Every week since 2012 up until about 6 months ago.
Right. But we've been concentrating on one of our biggest missions, and that is getting money out of politics.
That's right.
All right. What was it, 6 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled in the Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission ruling that basically opened the floodgates for large corporations to dump tons and tons of money into
Yeah.
the political process, like pouring gasoline on a fire.
That's it.
If you think things were hyper partisan back nowadays, back then when this first happened, it basically opened up the floodgates.
That's right. That's right.
So why don't if you could
Okay.
tell us a little bit more about Citizens
Okay.
United there.
I will tell you as quickly as I can about 3 cases that all work together to screw everything up. And you realize between 2012, between 2008 and 2012, between super PACs, which, by the way, if you're an originalist, I was thinking about that today. If you're an originalist, you can't have super PACs. Anthony Scalia, if he were intellectually honest, would have outlawed super PACs because they're not in the Constitution.
Right, but I do recall Anthony Scalia was in the majority
Yes.
of that decision.
Let me just try to give you a quick breakdown and 3 cases that put us where we are today. And as I say, in 2008, I think it was about $6 million spent by both parties between super PACs and contribution super PACs and contribution to individual candidates, which was by far the most ever spent. That was after one case. In 2012, after the second case, it went up to about 15 billion. It was 6 billion. It went up to 15 billion just because of these cases. Now this year it's on a pace to be about 35 billion. It's just exploding exponentially, and the only people who have control over anything the candidates say or do, or any promises they make, are the contributors. So we had a couple decisions. I'll go through this as fast as possible. We can go into more detail, but the first case was 2003, McConnell versus Federal Election Commission. That was a case that upset the campaign finance laws that have been in effect since 1976 in this country. Some have been in effect since 1900, and it just threw everything out the window and opened up the thing. This was the case that that allowed unlimited donations. Let's see, 1 second. 1 second. Okay. And then of course, added to that, all those statutes were reinforced by McCain-Feingold, which was the gold standard for campaign finance reform. But I don't have the whole thing here. But basically, what it did is, the Supreme Court threw most of it out. It said, if you're donating to a political party, the sky's the limit. If you're a trillionaire, or if you're a multi-billionaire and you want to give $1 billion to give to the Republican National Committee because you want certain things from the party, that's fine. That was a change from law since 1900. If you wanted to as a union or as an officer in a union or corporation or a nonprofit organization, if you wanted to pay for advertising on behalf of one candidate or the other, and this is all candidate specific, not super PACs, but if you wanted to do that, the law is thrown out, the sky's the limit. So this is all money where rich people and corporate officers, really the corporation, but they're doing it through the corporate officers. The corporation adds this to their pay so they can make a donation. So it's really the corporation. It's illegal for corporations to make donations, but it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. So those were the two major changes. Political parties people could a trillionaire, a multi-billionaire like Donald Trump, in those days he did, could donate $1 billion to a campaign. So
and frequently did.
And frequently did. So, but that was only candidate specific, and then a new case came out. That was, as you say, Citizens United, and so on McConnell versus FEC, it took out all the limits for people, rich people giving donations to political candidates specifically. Now super PACs came up under Citizens United. That's the one that happened, 5.5 or is it 6 years?
It was 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
It was 6 years ago, January 20th, I believe.
So, there you go. And what that did, these people got through with the biased Supreme Court, what was obviously a violation of the First Amendment. But they said, look, now we got through that you can donate as much as you want to a candidate. It's unfair. Mm-hmm. It's discriminatory to say you can donate as much as you want to a political campaign, but you can't donate it through super PACs. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense. So Citizens United said, well, you got a point. The biased Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia, never occurred to him that super PACs didn't even exist at the time of the Constitution. The Constitution was written. Said, that's fine. Discrimination. If you can donate as much as you want to a politician, you can donate as much as you want to a super PAC. Mm-hmm. Only through ads. Only through political ads. That was the limitation. And of course, that let in the floodgates. And that's when like this year's going to be $36 billion. Mitch McConnell said, who was the one who sued in McConnell versus FEC, because they want the rich people to, the Democrats at least say they don't want rich people donating to super PACs and candidates, but they allow it. But the Republicans, McConnell, who sued under McConnell versus FEC, they don't even make a pretense of it. And each Republican candidate has its own $1 million donor that keeps them in business, and they don't care. Now, finally, the real screwing came after Citizens United. It was a D.C. case that was based on Citizens United. Oh, and by the way, I should say about Citizens United, which was the case where Hillary tried to do where they tried to do a hatchet job on Hillary, and because of the fact that they put it on TV, it was an in-kind donation. And Hillary argued that it was a multi-million-dollar in-kind donation, and the court said, yeah, but that's fine. But finally, Speech Now versus FEC, which was the companion case, the case that really put the nail in the coffin after Citizens United. And by the way, I should tell you that the whole dispute was, the argument in Citizens United was you couldn't, against Citizens United decision was that you couldn't, as long as the potential for corruption didn't exist, the floodgates could be open. If people are giving $1 million donations and there's no corruption, which they hadn't seen any sign of, that's why it was right to eliminate all campaign contribution limits. And under a very narrow definition of political corruption. In other words, if you can prove that Mayor Pulowski took X number of dollars for in order to give Ramzi Haddad special treatment, which he did, that's illegal under Citizens United. But now it will be because he's using federal funds. I don't want to get into the weeds here, but the real
those are some big weeds. That goes on another whole tangent that we can explain after you're done.
Am I going too fast, or am I not
No,
being
no,
clear?
no. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. But the long story short of it, though, is that the Citizens United decision is what basically opened the floodgates to all manner of money going into super PACs and other political action committees. That is basically tainting the entire political process.
That's right.
It's saying that big money has more free speech rights than the citizens of this country.
Exactly. There's not equal free speech rights. Money equals speech. Corporations equal people. The only kind of corruption there could possibly be is quid pro quo, when somebody takes a bribe and you can prove they took a bribe. And then Speech Now said. These super PACs, you can give as much as you want, no matter for what purpose. It didn't matter. There were no limits on individual contributions to individual presidential campaigns, and there was no limit to super PACs, as long as for any purpose, as long as this corporation weren't giving the money directly. It was given through officers. So you have officers. Well, of course, they're making $100 million a year. Are giving
in some cases, and a lot of this money too is not even reportable. It's dark money.
Exactly.
Because if they contribute to a super PAC, they don't have to reveal who they are.
At first they said that in Citizens United they said that if the Congress passed a law saying that the people who gave the $1 million donations, etc., had to disclose their names, that would be legal. And then later on they said, no, that's not legal. That involves personal privacy rights. So if X CEO of X corporation gives $1 million, even $1 billion, as the Kochs are talking about doing, as Soros is talking about doing this year, as Tom Styros is doing, the environmentalist on the Democratic side. They can keep that a secret too, as long as it doesn't induce bribery. Well, of course it induces bribery. It's just hard to.
It's just harder to pin down. I mean, it's just bribery by another name, and they're working so hard to tell people you don't have to look here. Just go about your daily life. We'll take care of everything. That's what began happening here in Allentown. And several months ago, we had to take our focus away from the national scene because, well, we had this corruption popping up in our very own backyard.
Yes.
And this is where, last July 2nd, for example, the Federal Bureau of Investigation raided Allentown City Hall. They raided the mayor's office. They raided the controller's office, Mary Ellen Koval. They raided the solicitor's office.
They dragged them all down. They dragged them all down from the City Hall to the federal courthouse to be interrogated by the FBI.
Right across the street from City Hall, even.
Yeah.
Well, almost across the street, just up and maybe up a little bit, about a block away at the most.
Yeah.
But they were all hauled over there and made to give depositions. They had to give up their computer files, any paperwork. It took them at least a couple of months the first time. And then, of course, there has been other raids. And all this circled around a political consultant named Mike Fleck.
Yes.
Who was discovered later on that 90 days before the raid, he wore a body wire during that time. So he made all manner of personal recordings of the mayor and all manner of other people. We have a studio audience now who is silently closing the door.
He's looking for his phone.
Which is over by the coffee pot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You're quite
welcome. You want to say
welcome.
hello to our audience? This is the famous
This is the famous Den Man from Den Man's Dungeon.
Hello. We just started that show again earlier today. And
Yes, we did.
Great success.
Great success.
Do you agree?
I agree. We had a great success. It's going to be a good thing. You'll see.
Give them the URL.
I
Okay.
I can't give it to him right now.
Okay.
I can call you and we
Okay.
can get that. and
Right, now that
We'll
you've got your
post it.
phone back.
We'll post it.
Exactly.
It's actually http://www period ustream.tv
Wow, okay.
slash
Gibberish.
channel.
No, they changed it. I was wrong. They changed it. It is now a gibberish URL, but I did copy it off, and
Okay.
I will have that posted on
My
Facebook in the near
apologies.
future.
My
You have my word.
apologies.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
Take
So those
care.
are not donuts from me? You're going to take them down to the cop shop?
Donuts. I got. Yeah, I guess I'll do that.
Okay, he's going to take the donuts down to the cop shop and do his best to be the trunk monkey.
Did you have pizza or no? Did you enjoy a pizza after the show?
We actually went to McDonald's, which is so unlike me.
I know. He's more a Tony Luke's kind of guy. Take care.
All right, take care, sir. But back to what
Yeah.
I was saying, it was Mike Fleck
Yes.
who had made these calls and then turned state's evidence. Like 2 days after the
Yeah.
raid, he ended up doing the big poof.
Yeah.
He moved out of his house. He closed down his consultancy business, and he's rumored to be somewhere around Athens, Georgia, I think,
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
playing Facebook games.
Well,
But the
anyhow,
result
let me
of
just
that-
say, it was a real comedy or tragedy, depending on your view. The day after the raid, and this was the second raid. The first raid the mayor kept secret. The second raid on July 2nd, July 2nd already, his phones were disconnected. July 3rd, they saw the reporters saw a big moving van in front of the in front of his headquarters. And on July 3rd, they drove the moving van, and nobody ever heard of him again. But of course, he's in witness protection in Athens or Atlanta, Georgia.
Right, but now this has had a snowball effect here in Allentown, where we've been concentrating on that story. We did some shows about that at the time. Then we started taping the various city hall meetings, and let me get into that for a moment as well. January 20th of 2015, Robert and I made a special appearance before Allentown City Council
Yes.
to ask them to pass a symbolic
Yep.
resolution standing up against big money in politics.
We
At the
sure
time, they
did.
denied it.
Yep.
All right, there were some newspaper articles, and
Yep.
that was all great. So at that point, we started paying more attention after the raid. We started attending meetings more and more, and we're like, well, hey, what would be a great idea if we film this for our own usage as well, and for the usage of our studio audience?
Well, it was your idea.
That was my idea, but the point being, we wanted a different viewpoint, especially on these meetings, because at the time their meetings videos were not set up correctly, or they were not always posted. We wanted to do something to show the people of Allentown and the greater Lehigh Valley just exactly what went on at some of these meetings. So I've been religiously using the channel
Yeah.
to video the meetings
Yep.
and uploading them eventually to our YouTube channel, which eventually you'll see the link to that. You can peruse any of them that you want. They're all there. But that that reveals some of what's been going on in Allentown. We've seen people coming up complaining about all manner of various issues, and for the most part, there are exceptions to this, but for the most part, Allentown has stayed silent. The city council has stayed silent.
Yeah.
Now, a major exception to that
Major exception.
would be Julio Gurdy, who's a council person. He's been on for many years now.
Ex-president, ex-vice president.
Ex-president, ex-vice president. But he held a special meeting the other night that involved the lead paint controversy.
Yes.
There was a story on Vox.com about a report issued by the Pennsylvania Department of Health suggesting that Allentown was the worst place in the state by far for lead paint exposure.
15 times the exposure of Flint, Michigan, just to give you an
Which,
idea.
in some ways, that story was rather misleading. There was a very detailed presentation made by the Allentown Department of Health last week, and the video is on our YouTube site. You can watch it yourself. That explains what they've been doing about battling the lead paint here in Allentown for the past 20 years.
Well, I would take issue with that. Just to take the devil's advocate, I saw that report and I didn't think it had any credibility at all. But of course, we can debate that
I
point.
suspect the Pennsylvania State Department of Health's numbers might have been a little fudged, in part because of the way the testing was reported.
Well, that could be.
All right,
But
and the Health Bureau explained that the testing that was used by the Pennsylvania State Department of Health was submitted voluntarily by pediatricians who had performed those tests. And that the test results themselves can be skewed up to that point. Allentown is the only, after Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Allentown is the only, has the only state, the only Department of Health that is religiously combating.
Well, I don't know if they're. See. I just like to take issue. I think they were doing that up until about 3 or 4 years ago, which is about the time a lot of the programs that Mayor Pulaski pushed because he was running for re-election. No longer push. I just have a bias because the administration has no credibility on just about everything. And essentially, that report, I mean, my position, that report was a whitewash. That was like saying, we're doing everything we can, even though we're not fully testing and we're going to add programs, we're doing everything we can. And the reason why the lead levels are so high is that we're the only city of our size that's reporting to the city government. So there's nothing to see here. And I really had a problem with that report, especially coming from an administration that had a reason to lie. Because first of all, there's no election coming up. He doesn't have the crooked mayor doesn't have an obligation to talk about it, and he's not. He's like saying everything's fine here. But
he was saying everything was fine based on what he knew,
which he didn't know that much.
Right. But in reality, though, the Allentown Health Bureau has been actively pursuing lead paint remediation. They explained that to remediate or rehabilitate a house is going to involve varying degrees of money. And I've done this kind of stuff like 25 years ago. I've worked with the Allentown Health Bureau 25 years ago in some of these homes.
I know you did. That was 25 years ago. You don't know what's happening.
But they're still doing it. That's my point. And they only have like $100,000 allocated towards this. So now that may be increased.
That's the point. They're fudging on the figures because they don't want to spend more than $100,000 a year, and that's exactly the point. They're saying there's nothing to see here, there's no problem, because the subtext is we only have $100,000 to spend, and we don't have enough money in the budget to spend any more than that, so nothing to see here. And we can argue about it. I just feel very strongly that, plus the fact that the original report, first of all, they thought it was, for people who interpret the report as saying it was the water, and then they said, no, it's the dust from the lead paint on these old buildings where the paint's flaking off. And now they're saying, but the report never said that. Now they're saying it could be...
The Pennsylvania State Department of Health's report never stated where the lead was coming from, because all the data to that report was voluntarily contributed by pediatricians.
And the pediatrician said there's 25% of the kids in Allentown, which was far more than any other city. And by the way, Pennsylvania, I'm not arguing with you, but I'm taking the devil. Pennsylvania is the worst state in the union for lead poisoning or lead intoxication levels of children, young children. And of all the cities in Pennsylvania, Allentown is by far the worst. 25%, according to doctors' reports, 25% of all kids under a certain age, I don't know if it's 10 or 8 or 6 or 5, but 25% have some kind of lead intoxication. And you can't just, it's very easy for the minister to poo-poo and say, we're spending $100,000, nothing to see here, no problem. We know what it's from. Nobody knows what it's from, and there's this 25%, which is a shocking figure. 25% of kids are starting with a major deficit where they're never going to reach their potential, and they may end up being criminals and quitting school.
There are behavioral problems associated with long-term lead exposures. That was one of the things they explained during the presentation by the Allentown Department of Health.
I know.
Now, I found their presentation very fulfilling and very detail-oriented, and it also explained gaps in their detail. For example, they couldn't explain about the lead content in the water. Why? Because Allentown no longer has their own water company.
And let me say,
they leased it for 50 years to the Lehigh County Authority, so it's up to the Lehigh County Authority to test for lead exposure in the water.
And by the way, Lehigh County Authority addressed that problem. The CEO of Lehigh County Authority addressed that problem and related problems in the Sunday morning call about 2 weeks ago. And let me just say a word about that.
Okay.
New CEO, I forget her name, she said, well, Allentown residents better accept that there's going to be major increases in the cost of their supplying water. From first of all, we leased the water under a 50-year lease, and then we forgave most of the cost of the lease. Pulaski, in his infinite wisdom, I think it was $2.5 million, and he or whatever figure it was, he reduced that tremendously. He said you don't have to pay that much for the 50-year lease. So the Lehigh County Authority took over that, and the new head of the CEO of the Lehigh County Authority said there's going to be major increases in the amount that people are going to pay in the next several years compared to what they were paying when the city of Allentown Water in the next 5 to 10 years. And we're going to have to talk about making hard decisions because it's going to be, quote, major infrastructure changes, or updates that are going to have to be made. I'm sure they're talking about the lead pipes, but not only is the cost of water going to go up because we leased it to the Lehigh County Authority, but they're essentially admitting that they're going to have to modernize all these things in order to prevent the problems that are occurring, and the taxpayers are going to pay for it. So,
sad but true, and this is just going to be one reason among many that the Lehigh County Authority is going to cite when they hike up the water bill.
Tremendously. They're
Tremendously
increasing
so.
5 or 6
but
or 10
this is
times.
just one of several stories that we have been working on that have been cropping up in
Yeah.
our own backyard. So needless to say, we're not in Los Angeles anymore, okay? For a while, we were doing some work for the Los Angeles Coffee Party, which that's kind of sort of hard to do from 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
I don't get out there very often anymore.
No.
So we kind of sort of dropped that.
It's been a couple months now.
But it's been crazy with all these stories in our backyard. But we're back. We're going to stay. And there are so many issues now coming up. You've all heard about Bernie Sanders, okay? Now, officially, the Lehigh Valley Coffee Party can't advocate for one person or another for political office.
But since the Lehigh Valley Coffee Party doesn't really exist anymore,
except for just us two.
yeah, so we can do what we want.
Well, long story short, who else are you going to call, okay? I mean, how many other presidential candidates out there who want to do away with Citizens United, want to save the planet Earth from climate change, want to do away with mass surveillance of our Fourth Amendment rights, all right? Only one, Bernie Sanders, is the only one who proposes that. Hillary Clinton,
That's right.
yeah, she's a Democrat, but she voted in, she lobbied in favor of repealing what's that name of the bill? Glass-Steagall bill that
separated the banks from doing stockbroking work.
And this is while Bill Clinton was president, so she was out there lobbying
And the
for that.
significance of this is that during Depression, before the Depression, banks were permitted to do stockbroking work as if they were stockbrokers, and that was one of the major causes of Depression. So during the Depression, one of the major reforms was that they were forbidden to do this by Glass-Steagall. Clinton removed that, and that's been a lot of problem why the banks have been failing and all that stuff. But Bernie Sanders is the only solution, and I support him not because of his political policies, only to a certain extent myself, income redistribution, but because he's so strong on campaign finances, his number one priority.
And there is not one single candidate who ever ran recently who would propose that.
Well, Hillary Clinton proposed it. It's just that
she wants to do it at a piecemeal rate. She's trying to be more like Bernie, and she's failing miserably.
Well, I'm just saying, those are the two candidates.
And the Republicans, no. The closest Republican candidate that I might have supported would have been Rand Paul, but only because of his stand against mass surveillance.
Right.
None of the Republicans said anything about climate change. None of the Republicans have said anything about campaign finance reform. Except for Donald Trump, who actually said, yeah, I've bought more politicians than everybody else combined.
Well, I'll give Donald Trump credit. Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Donald Trump said, I'm for campaign finance reform. What he meant was, I'm not going to take any campaign finance, or I'm going to take very limited campaign money. I'm not going to use a super PAC. But everybody else is on their own. That's just me. I have no solution to the problem of money in politics. I'm just not going to take it. Everybody else is on their own. And Ted Cruz at one point said he was for transparency. In other words, reporting all the money was taken in. But as soon as he announced for president, he withdrew that. Jeb Bush also said in New Hampshire that he wanted to overthrow Citizens United. Are we okay?
Yeah, we're okay.
But then he said, this is why I want to overthrow it, because I think super PACs should be able to give, people who give to super PACs should be able to give more money than they do now, and that's why I don't like Citizens United. So, and corporations should be able to give money directly. So, I mean, the three candidates have been talking about unfortunately, none of them is credible. Ted Cruz reversed himself. Jeb Bush was never for it. And Donald Trump just says, trust me, I'm not going to take any money, but everybody else is on their own. That's not a solution to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
But to get back to what we were talking about, Bernie Sanders seems to be the only candidate who's going to fit this bill.
Yeah.
And Robert and I have both been working
Yes.
with the Bernie Sanders campaign, doing various things in an effort to let the people know just exactly what he's standing for, up for, in comparison to the other candidates. Now, we're going to be doing this down the road.
Yep.
For example, we have our own site, realchange.us, that we've been expanding on, and we'll be expanding on majorly in the near future. We've been talking to some subject matter experts and some celebrities out in the real world. We're going to hopefully get some people to start filling it up soon with their reasons why people should vote for Bernie Sanders. We'll be doing other activities as well as the months come up in order to educate people about Bernie Sanders and why we believe that he is the beginning to our answer. Not the whole answer. He can't do everything at once. And in fact, he won't be able to do anything without your help.
That's right.
First, we got to get him elected.
That's right.
All right. And then we have to get working on doing our part to change Congress, because Congress is the reason why President Obama could not do anything.
That's right.
Every single Republican legislator stood up against President Obama when he first became president and stonewalled just about everything he did.
That's right.
This is why President Obama hardly did anything, because the Republicans stood up against him. And for that reason, they must go. All right. Their concept of limited government, they want to limit government to the point where they can drown it in a bathtub.
That's what Governor Norquist said.
That's what they want to do. They want to drown government in a bathtub so they can go out and they can make all the money they want, not pay taxes, store it off overseas, and screw over the average working person. Long story short.
I will take a somewhat contrary view, which is I guess okay. I don't have a problem with. I don't necessarily have a problem with Republicans wanting to decrease the size of government. My personal opinion, however, is that government has to be made much more efficient. Government can do wonderful things, and they're supposed to.
Efficiency is good.
Now, locally, we have a homeless problem because the city of Allentown never organized a real homeless solution in the winter, as a result of which 38 homeless people were thrown out of a
homeless shelter on the snowiest day of the year.
9 inches of snow and gusting winds.
At the time,
and it eventually became
31 inches of snow fell during that snowstorm when the homeless people were forced out of their shelter here in Allentown.
And were first to defend themselves on the street, with 9 inches of snow getting to 31 inches of snow, and luckily they were taken in, but they had to walk 2 miles and a mile and a half in 9 inches of snow in order to get to a makeshift shelter. But I'm not against. But there are things. Government has a place. My belief is government has a place. I'm not saying how big a place that should be, but I'm saying if you look, I agree with Tea Party people that there's an awful lot of inefficiency. If you look at almost any government agency, they're not doing their job. Either they've been captured, so-called captured by the corporate interest, so they don't do their job. But look at the Secret Service.
Or they're spooked like a deer in the headlights, and they're afraid to do anything. That's what I suspect is happening here in
But there
Allentown.
has to be major reform everywhere. I mean, it's just not a matter of adding to government programs. It's a matter of getting fair value back, because government does have a place, but it's not achieving any good results now, because all the government agencies, especially in the federal government and in Allentown, are completely inefficient. The Secret Service can't even protect the president.
No,
I mean, what's
how
up
many,
with that?
How many times have they been breached?
The VA can't take care of the veterans. Now part of the problem is they do need more money and updated systems, but part of the problem is they're just not servicing the people. And what's the
And
point?
despite what Bernie Sanders has been doing,
Yeah.
he's fighting a bureaucracy there. Even
Yeah.
though he's a standing senator now and standing politician for how many years,
Yeah.
he too is stonewalled by the Republicans in
Exactly.
Congress. Now, if I may for a moment,
Absolutely.
I'm not against republicanism, okay? For example, I believe everybody should have a gun. I believe in the sanctity of life, so I don't believe in abortion. There are other values that I believe in Republicans as well, but the Republican Party, the national party itself, is what I hold at fault. I don't hold rank and file Republicans at fault. Local Republicans here, they're a bunch of decent people, I've noticed.
Yeah, they can't get into politics. They can't get into government. That's the problem. The Democrats are
The
corrupt. They've been
Democrat, even though I'm a
entrenched.
lifetime Democrat, most of the Democrats that are local here are not doing their job
No,
properly. They're
no.
not. They're corrupted, and corruption is not a Democrat issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's a human issue.
Corrupted. They have their hands they're putting their hands in the government and other people's pockets in order to make money, not in order
To make money for themselves,
Yes.
and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
right.
One big example of that. Take a look at China. Take a look at all the corruption that is going on in the largest country on earth.
Yep.
Over 1.2 billion people, and the whole system there is corrupt. It's communist, and they're corrupt.
Absolutely.
You can go anywhere. I can point you to any government, whether it's Democratic, Republican, whatever. Every system can be corrupted.
That's
It
right.
is the corruption that must be removed
That's right.
and monitored.
That's right.
So it's not just Republicans.
You can't have Ed Pawlowski or anybody in the federal government having their hands out and say, well, if you want a special favor from me, give me money and I'll make sure it happens. Which is what's happening in Allentown. Which is what happened in Crystal City, Texas, where the mayor was where they got rid of almost all the officers.
Yes, I read about that.
And the mayor resigned.
Yes.
Which is what Ed Pawlowski should do. The mayor here should do. He should resign.
He has no confidence. Several weeks ago, the city council here in Allentown made an unofficial vote of no confidence against Mayor Pawlowski. And even to this day, the last meeting, somehow these people are coming into Allentown City Council meeting and they're singing his praises.
Well, there's very few now. There's very few.
There was one, though.
There was one.
There was one, and I'm like, lady, are you on drugs or something? Have you been
Janet
living under
Peschel.
a rock?
Yeah, Janet Peschel, yeah.
I don't know the name, but
She's in his
damn.
church. She's in his church. Church on the Move, which is now something else. It's like one of these mega churches. They have like 5 branches in the Lehigh Valley with 5 different ministers. They have like 10,000 members, and that's the church he belonged to. So one of their members came out and said, well, maybe he's corrupt, but that's not a reason to get rid of him.
Yeah,
but that was only one.
But
Go
we
ahead.
got the video to all this on our
Yeah.
YouTube channel,
Yeah.
which we'll be providing on our Facebook groups here in a moment. So
That's
if you're listening to this, you'll find us on Let's Build a Better Allentown.
Let's build a new Allentown.
Let's build a new Allentown. Not this one up here.
No,
I gotta
not
erase
that one. That
Forget about that. That was Pawlowski's pack.
was Pawlowski's pack. That's the
But
one we're against.
that's the one group we're on. I'm also admin, Lehigh Valley for Bernie Sanders. You can check that group out if you get a chance. If you'd like to help out,
Facebook.
please. These are on Facebook. As far as the Bernie Sanders campaign goes, if you're interested in Bernie Sanders, you want to learn more about him, Lehigh Valley for Bernie Sanders. Just pop on there, and if you're willing to help out even more, that's great, because the more people we can get involved, the more people who can help the campaign, the more likely we can get him and other supportive Congress people elected. For example, here in Lehigh Valley, we have Charlie Dent.
That's what I want to say. I'm not against Republicans. I'm not against Democrats. I'm against incumbents. Charlie Dent is an incumbent. Mark Cartwright is a good incumbent, but all the legislators we have around here, Toomey, They're all
Oh,
incumbents.
Toomey especially.
and
He doesn't
they're
even want to
corrupt.
hold any hearings for the
for the Flint.
for Justice Scalia.
Oh, for Scalia.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do any hearings for the replacement. He wants the next president to do it.
Well, the next president is going to be Democratic because they did that. I don't blame them for doing that. Their contributors forced Mitch McConnell to do that because they said they'd cut off their financing. The only problem is that I understand the position. He didn't want to do it. It was a terrible decision. It's probably, in my opinion, going to cost the Republicans the presidency and also a lot of the Senate and congressional seats. But the rich people demanded it, and it's it's going to be a disaster for them. Not that I'm saying they're wrong. I'm just saying politically, I think it's going to be a disaster.
Well, like I said, in addition to reversing Glass-Steagall, in addition to reversing Citizens United, in addition to saving our planet from the polluters, the corrupt polluters who've been polluting our planet for over 100 years, okay? Let's see, what else? Oh, free health care. That's a good idea. I mean, most of the rest of the world has it. Why not us? Why do we have to pay the pharmaceutical companies hundreds of dollars for a pill that only costs them 5 cents to make?
Exactly.
All right? They have these factories set up in Puerto Rico where they use cheap labor.
That's right.
Other countries as well, cheap labor.
Yeah. But the
and
other countries, Europe and Canada, have the same products. They charge on average 1/10, at least 1/10, maybe 1/100th what they charge in the United States. The same product, because in the United States it's a profit-making system.
Exactly.
The guy who made the AIDS drugs, who's now under indictment in the
Martin Shkreli is his name.
Who was under indictment for fraud.
He's the biggest
and is
example.
thumbing his nose at Congress and at the federal prosecutors. He says, "I'm big. I can do whatever I want. I don't care. I can beat you." Is increase the AIDS drugs? What 1,000%?
Increases the price of the AIDS drug that he was selling by about 1,000%
in one day, overnight, without notice.
Overnight, as soon as he became
and
CEO of this drug company.
And people are dying because of that.
Yep.
And overseas, you can get them at a much cheaper price.
So why should thousands of people be permitted to die because the pharmaceutical industry wants to make a profit like that?
That's right. I agree.
Now, I can understand there's a cost involved. Sure, I can understand if they want to make a little bit of profit. I'm not up against a little bit of profit, but 1,000%? 1,000% increase? No.
Because he knows AIDS people need it, and they'll end up paying whatever it has to. They have to pay somehow to be able to.
Especially
survive.
if this charge is passed on to other companies or other countries that already have free health care. Norway, Sweden, France, Germany.
Holland,
governments,
Japan,
their governments have to pay that increase as well.
Canada,
and they have no choice but to pass it on to their own people in higher taxes. Now, granted, under Bernie's plan, taxes may go up, but consider what you're going to get in return. You're going to get free health care. You don't have to make co-payments. Okay, no more drug co-payments. No more co-payments for going to see a doctor or an X-ray specialist or therapy. No co-payments at all. It's just free, taken care of. Taxing people who make over $250,000 a year. This is why the Republicans are fighting him. This is why the the hierarchy of the Republicans are so scared about Bernie Sanders, because their richest members would face higher taxes.
Let me just say,
the average person making less than $250,000 a year is not going to see that much of a tax increase, if at all.
I'm just going to say I have a tremendously bad case of rheumatoid arthritis, and there are weeks at a time where sometimes I can't even get out of bed. I'm in constant pain. My only salvation at this point is the pain doctor who gives me spine injections to kill the pains for about 2 or 3 months. I pay a I live on Social Security. I pay a $65 co-payment, plus I pay about $75 or $100 for anesthesia every time I have a shot. This is after insurance.
Right.
And I think it's $100 after insurance that I have to pay the doctor for the shot after the $65 I pay. Because Medicare doesn't cover that. He's not participating. So there you go.
Well, I got a question I'm going to ask you on air now. You know who Granny Clampett is? From the Beverly Hills area, right? You know her rheumatism medicine. Here's a good question for you. Is rheumatism medicine kosher? Riddle me that. Is it kosher?
It depends on what ingredients she's putting in. If it's straight whiskey,
I would imagine it's straight corn mash. It just has to be ground up fine enough so that it passes through the tubes.
if
If it clogs the tube, that's why you get still explosions.
probably. But then I don't drink anymore, so I was an alcoholic for
We'll
about
talk
2
about
years.
that later.
I could also use marijuana seeds, they tell me, for medicinal marijuana. But
Now that I've not heard of. But I could see that. Marijuana cures so many other ills.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, it was just revealed today, Pennsylvania State Senate has passed the medical marijuana law. Has sent the bill to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives.
Oh.
So in case you're interested, write your state representative if you want them to pass the medical marijuana bill.
Okay.
And soon we may have that here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Not that I would do such a thing. I don't smoke anymore. I quit smoking 16 years ago.
I
But,
wouldn't smoke.
Hey, I know lots of other people who could benefit from it.
I'm actually conservative on drug usage. I wouldn't smoke because I gave up smoking 25 years ago. No, nothing's going to make me go back to smoking. And I don't know if I even take the marijuana seeds because I'm anti-drug. But I don't care if other people use it if it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll do what I have to keep my back in shape.
Would marijuana be kosher? It's
Ooh.
natural. It's natural.
No, it's not.
No?
It's not because of what it's used for. That makes it non-kosher. Not
Oh.
because it'd be a plant. The
Right.
plant would be kosher, but the fact that it's an illicit drug would make it unkosher.
Well, some people would use that to make, say, for example, cannabis butter, which is used for treating cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Basically mix it in with the butter, and the THC, the active ingredient, becomes infused in the butter because THC is both fat and alcohol solutable.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, it's used to deliver the THC to the cancer patient's tumors by ingesting it.
Anything to save a person's life is legitimate. Insulin is made out of pig, whatever.
It was originally made out of pig livers.
Pig liver, and that was perfectly kosher because it was something you needed to save your life.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought pigs themselves were not kosher.
They are not kosher, but life.
But the
comes
medicine
before,
is.
Life comes before anything. That's
That would
right.
make a good argument for bacon.
Why? What's
Why
it?
not? I mean, bacon. It will cure the world quicker than Bernie Sanders will. But that's another subject for another day. So we're going to cut off here any moment now. We've only got about another minute left. But I did want to say that we're going to be expanding our activities here soon greatly throughout the state. Please keep your eye on our Facebook pages. There's going to be a GoFundMe page
GoFundMe to help us out.
that will help us out in the near future. We're going to hope to set that up. We're back. We're going to be here every Monday now.
That's right.
Roughly 5 or 6 o'clock.
5
We'll be
to 6.
announcing this
5 to 6.
as far in advance as possible.
And it'll be
we'll
on
have special guests.
Tom Ulrich's email page. If you get that, it'll be announced.
Well, it's already still announced on there yet.
Well,
We're
if
just
we
gonna
have to
start
change
getting
the
back to
time, we'll
that
change
now.
the time.
All right, so please keep an eye out for us. We're out there to help you people. We're out to inform you people, educate whoever comes across, and we're going to rock on. We're
That's
back,
right.
all right?
Rock
So
on,
thank you for
baby.
joining us. My name is Louis Shoup, Lewis.
Mike Flack.
No, Mike.
I don't look like Mike anymore because I've gone through the witness protection program. They've changed my identity.
That plastic surgery works wonders. I'm telling you. You got to give me the name of that doctor later. So join us here next week. Thank you for joining us, and have a nice day.
You too. See you next.